Hello guys and welcome to the next video. Today we're going to look at the next part of my collection, which will be a spell ruler, or as it was called back in the day, magic ruler. You know, they had to rename the set because there was some trouble with Magic the Gathering, so every spell was renamed to magic, the cards and the set. But yeah, anyway, so as you can see, this is a different binder as the ones I'm using for Metal Raiders and Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon, just because the set is smaller. It has less cards, so it does fit in a 3x3 binder. As with the previous sets, the first row in the set is always a first edition card, so I do have the master set in first edition. And as you can also see, these cards are organized differently, so they are from left to right with the playsets instead of top to bottom. This was the original way how I organized my cards, but yeah, with the other binders I had to do it differently because there were 4 slots to the right, so yeah. Anyways, getting to the cards, we're starting out with the Blue Eyes Toon Dragon, which always was a very nice and nostalgic card. Anyhow, if you wanted to play Toons, you did not want to play this guy, really, because he required 2 tributes. If you were playing Toons, you were mostly using the Toon Summon Skull, just because he was strong enough and only required 1 tribute. And then we have Penguin Knight, pretty pointless monster. And then some good equip spell cards. We have the Axe of Despair, which increases the attack of a monster by 1000. And on the next page, we have the Black Pendant, which increases by 500 attack, and the Malevolent Nuzzler, which increases by 700 attack. And all 3 of these cards were pretty decent back in the day, and I would play them in a lot of decks. Because if you equipped them to a monster, they were mostly stronger than tribute monsters, and that was just very good. And also with the Axe of Despair and the Malevolent Nuzzler, you could get them back if they get destroyed. So with the Malevolent Nuzzler, you had to pay 500 life points and you could put it on top of your deck. And with the Axe of Despair, you had to tribute 1 monster to put it back on top of the deck. So that was pretty decent. Then we have the Spellbinding Circle. It was a card you could play back in the day, but it was not really good because it didn't help you destroy your opponent's monsters. It just made it so they can't attack anymore, and they were still on the field and they still had their effects, so it was kind of not that good. We have some, of course, there are also vanilla monsters in this set. This one is a 5-star with 1600 attack, so these bad vanilla monsters stick around for a really long time. On the next page there's some more monsters nobody really was playing. I guess the Guardian of the Throne Room was one of the stronger monsters with 1650. I think that's the maximum attack that's in the set for a vanilla monster. And we have the Mahavelo. Not a monster you would play, but he gets pretty strong if you equip him with a few equip cards, because he gets 500 for each equip card he's equipped with. So if you use the Axe of Despair on him, he gets 1500 attack additional to his 1550 he already has, so he's over 3000, which is pretty good for just using Axe of Despair. Then on the next page there's more vanilla monsters. Of course, these are all 5 or 6 stars with very low attack. Really pointless to play them. And we have the Weather Report, which counters the Swords of Revealing Light. So he has the flip effect: if your opponent has Swords of Revealing Light on the field, you can destroy it, and then you can perform 2 battle phases. Yeah, I don't think that effect was ever pulled off. Maybe if we do a booster set duel with Spell Ruler versus Blue Eyes White Dragon, we can use that guy and see if we can get the effect to work. Then we have a few more vanilla monsters here. Another 4-star with 1650. Then we have Hero's Shadow Scout. That guy lets your opponent draw 3 cards, and all spell cards are then discarded. Of course, you don't want to play this guy because letting your opponent draw cards is not really good. The only deck where you would maybe play this dude is in Deck Destruction. If you have like Gravity Bind or whatever on the field and your opponent can't really do anything, then you can let him draw a few cards to get his deck down faster. We have the Invader of the Throne. If that guy gets flipped, you can switch control with an opponent monster. Not really good because you can't activate it in the battle phase. The card says that. So in most cases you would set this guy and he gets attacked, and then the effect would not go off, so you'd rather not play it. Yeah, then here we have another 4-star 1650, which is also pretty good. One of the basic Toon monsters. Yeah, Slot Machine. I think Bandit Keith played that guy in the Enemy, which was pretty cool. We have the Relinquished. That was a very strange monster back in the day because of the effect. It was very outstanding because it had a very weird effect. Equipping enemy monsters was very unusual back then. but it was the only ritual monster that you could play for a long time. It only requires one tribute to be summoned, and as I said, the effect is pretty good. Then we have the Gravekeeper's Servant. I always hated that card as a kid. Like when my opponent played that card, it's well, I mean, you did not really lose because of it. You had enough cards in your deck, but it was still so annoying to put all your good cards from the deck to the graveyard. It was really not nice to play against. Yeah, on the next page we have the Upstart Goblin, which of course is one of the best cards still today, because it lets you lower your total count of the deck. So if you're playing a 40 card deck with 3 Upstart Goblins, then you basically have only a 37 card deck, which is really good. So you can take out whatever card is the worst at the moment. Then we have the Snatch Steal, also a very good card. It sometimes was banned and sometimes it wasn't. If it wasn't banned, of course everybody would play it, because that was a game winner. Yeah, then we have the Confiscation. There were all the discard from your opponent's hand cards in this set, and Confiscation being one of them. It's a really strong card. You can look at your opponent's hand, which is already very good, and then you can discard his best card to the graveyard. It doesn't get a lot better than that. On the next page we have the Delinquent Tool. You pay 1,000 and then one card is randomly discarded from your opponent's hand, and he then chooses a card that is discarded, so he has to discard 2. And if you get this on your starting hand, then you basically start with 5 versus 4 cards, which is really, really good. This is also the reason why this card is banned for pretty much all the time. I think it was banned on one of the first ban lists and it never came back, because it gives you such a huge advantage. And there is Darkness Approaches, which has a really weird effect. I think this is the only card that allows your monsters to be in face down attack position, because this one, I can read the effect. It says, discard 2 cards from your hand, select one face up monster and flip it face down, but do not change the battle position. So if you played that card back in the day, I don't think anybody knew the ruling for it, because face down attack monsters were not in the rulebook, I think. Then we have the Rush Recklessly and the Reliable Guardian, which are quick spell cards that give your monster 700 attack or defense. Those were played in some decks, well, especially the Rush Recklessly. If your opponent attacks you and then you activate that card and your monster is stronger than your opponent's, then his monster gets destroyed, so it was pretty decent. Next page, there are a lot of good spell cards. We have the Forceful Sentry, which is the only card that's better than the one we just saw. It has no cost, so you don't have to pay 1,000. You can look at your opponent's hand, and then you can choose one card and it gets sent back to his deck, which is even better than sending it to the graveyard. Because when you send it to the graveyard, your opponent can still use any graveyard's effects, or he can bring it back with a Call of the Hunted or something, but if it goes back to the deck, it's gone until he draws it again. So this card is really, really strong. Then we have the Mystical Space Typhoon, which of course was a staple for years and never got banned. It's not super overpowered, but it's just one of the best cards when it says just destroy one magic or trap card on the field. And we have the Giant Trunade. Back in the day, it was only played in some one-turn kill decks. You would play out your monsters that could kill your opponent, then play the Giant Trunade, so all the spell and trap cards get sent back to the hand, so your opponent could not use any trap cards, and then you just attack for a game. I guess later on this card got banned because most of the decks were really fast and would always put out a field with over 8,000 attack, and if you then play the Giant Trunade, pretty much any deck can one-turn kill, so they had to ban this card. Then there's Painful Choice. This card was banned also very early on because it was too good. It enabled a lot of stuff. Not only did you get one of your best cards from the deck to the hand, you could also get 4 other cards into the graveyard, and there were a lot of combos that would abuse that, so this card was quickly banned. On the next page we have the Ritual of the Relinquished, which is of course required to summon it. Horn of a Unicorn, which is another equip card of the set. It raises the attack of a monster by 700 points, and the drawback of this card kind of is when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, it returns to the top of the deck, and that's you don't have a choice, so that has to be done. And it can kind of break your hand. Like if you play it out and then your opponent destroys your monster, then you have to draw it in the next turn again, which kind of sucks. And we have the Labyrinth Wall. These monsters had 3,000 defense for 5 stars, so I was playing it sometimes back in the day, but of course you don't want to play that guy. It doesn't help you to have monsters with high defense, but it is kind of funny to play this guy. Yeah, next page there are some of the labyrinth cards that are played in the enemy. Of course you cannot really play those in real life because they're pretty bad. I think this card, you can activate it if the labyrinth wall is on the field, and then you can summon the wall shadow. The wall shadow says you cannot normal summon this monster. This card can only be summoned with the labyrinth wall equipped with magical labyrinth. And yeah, that's basically it. So it only upgrades your labyrinth wall to a monster that has also attack. So this guy is 1600 to 3000, and it's not really worth summoning him for 1600 attack. It's a lot of effort to go through. Down here is the Megamorph. This is a card that enabled a lot of OTK decks just because the effect, it doubles the attack of a monster. So if you were playing like, I don't know, Cyberstein and summoned the, what's called Ultimate Blue Eyes Dragon or whatever, that has 4500 attack, and you equip it with Megamorph, then it had 9000 attack, and it was pretty much a good game. But I don't think that card got banned. They always banned the other cards that enable these one-turn kills. Next page we have some ritual cards for the other ritual monsters that were in the set. As you saw, we had the Relinquished, and then of course, since this was the first set with ritual monsters, they released some more of them. We have the Performance of the Sword and the kind of funny Hungry Burger and Crab Turtle. But of course, these were not really good. Like you can see 2000 attack, 2550, and that one has only 9050, so it's just, you need too much cards to summon these for so little attack and no effect. You would not really play them. And we have the Rerun and Manga Rerun. I never understood the name of that card because all the other cards are just called Toon and then the name. And this guy is called Manga, and then if they printed any Toon support, they always put on search for one Toon monster or Manga Rerun, which is really weird. Why not just call this guy a Toon Rerun? Then we have the Toon Mermaid, which was the only non-tribute Toon monster back in the day. Of course, that kind of sucked because if you play a Toon deck and all your monsters are tribute monsters, that's really stupid. So you would always play 3 Toon Mermaids, but 3 in a deck with a lot of tribute monsters was not a lot. But the good thing about the Toons was always that they were special summons. So if you had, for example, 2 Toon Mermaids on your hand and the Blue Eyes Toon Blue Eyes Dragon, you could summon the 2 Mermaids and the Toon Blue Eyes Dragon in the same turn. That was decent, I guess. And of course the Toon Summon Skull, which was the best Toon monster with 1 tribute and 2500 attack. Yeah, then next page we have the Toon World, which is required to summon the Toons, of course. The Cyberjaw, which was always one of the strongest monsters in the game. It just resets the whole board. If it gets flipped face up, all monsters are destroyed, and then all players draw 5 cards, and any monster with 4 stars or lower gets summoned, and all the other cards go to the hand. So it could get rid of basically anything that was on the field, and it was also banned pretty early on. Then we have Banisher of the Light. If that guy is face up on the field, all cards that are sent to the graveyard are instead banished from the game. Back in the day there was no real big use for this guy, but I guess later on some cards came out that made him kind of useful, like the Return from a Different Dimension and Dimension Fusion and similar cards. Yeah, then we have these cards down here, the Giant Rat and all the other monsters that are similar, which were introduced. These were really good and were played in a lot of decks. If they get destroyed by battle, you can summon a monster with a specific attribute from your deck with 1500 or less attack. So this one is for the Earth monsters, and I guess the UFO Turtle is for fire monsters, and there are more on the coming pages. So these were really decent, not only because you can summon any monster, but you can also summon the monster itself. So if your opponent has 3 monsters that could attack you, and he attacks the UFO Turtle with the first monster, you can summon another UFO Turtle, then he attacks the second UFO Turtle, and then you can summon the third one to protect your life points or have a tribute monster on your next turn. So that was really good. Then of course in the set we have the Senju of the 10,000 hands that lets you search ritual monsters. As I said, ritual monsters were not very good back in the day, and you wouldn't play a lot of ritual decks, so that guy wasn't really played a lot, but I guess he got better later on when they released better ritual monsters. Yeah, then we have some 2000 attack 4-star monsters, which of course all have a huge drawback, which is so bad that you can't play them. Then we have the Giant Germ. This is a pretty good card. If it gets destroyed by battle, you can summon 2 more from your deck, and your opponent takes 500 life points of damage for each one that's destroyed. So that's 1500 damage, and you can thin out your deck, so that's pretty good. Next page we have a very similar monster, the Nimble Momonga. It has the same effect. If it gets destroyed, you can summon 2 more, and for every one that's destroyed by battle, you get 1000 life points, so that's pretty good. Then we have 3 more of the monsters that can summon from the deck. This one is for the light monsters, this one is aqua monsters, and this one is wind monsters. And we have the Spear Crouton. I was playing that card back in the day because it was kind of an infinite loop. If that guy gets flipped face up and destroyed by battle, you can summon 1 monster in face down defense position from your graveyard. I think your opponent can do the same. However, if you have 2 of those guys and 1 is in your graveyard and 1 on the field, then you could always get 1 from the graveyard back and the other sent to the graveyard, and then your opponent attacks again and the next one is activated and you could loop them and your opponent could never attack your life points. On the next page we have the Sonic Bird, which is the same as the Statue of the 10,000 Hands, just that this one doesn't search for ritual monsters but ritual spell cards. So it wasn't played a lot back in the day, but later on I guess it got better. And we have the Mystic Tomato, the last search card. This is for dark monsters. Of course that one was always the best because you would play a lot of dark monsters and dark monsters were kind of always the best monsters. So I think Mystic Tomato saw the most play, together with Shining Angel I guess in the Chaos decks. And then the last cards in the set are these improved field spell cards. You know, the last field spell cards that were released were the ones in LOB, and these gave your monsters I think 200 attack and defense, and now we have these cards that give 500 attack. Of course we have for different types different cards, and there are some more here, but nobody would really play these field cards. We have, last but not least, the Messenger of Peace and the Serpent Night Dragon. Of course, Messenger of Peace was a nice stalling card. Not only does it block your opponent, but you can destroy this card anytime you want during your standby phase by not paying the 100 life points, so you can attack again. You can play this card out and stall your opponent however long you want, and if you have your field set up or whatever combo you wanted, then you can just destroy it and go ahead and play. So it was pretty good, especially also for burn decks or Exodia decks or whatever. Of course, the Serpent Night Dragon being the second secret rare of the set. He's kind of weak, so you would not really play him, but it's still a pretty cool card. He has a nice artwork. And if I go to the next page here, I have a few more cards, and what these cards are is those are the cards that were removed from the LOB set in Europe and instead released in Spell Ruler. So these are all Europe cards, and we did not get them with Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon, but instead with Spell Ruler. So for example, the Flame Swordsman, we did not have that guy until Spell Ruler was released. And pretty much the same with all the other cards you can see here. Which was the weirdest is Mountain. Like, they released all the other field spell cards in LOB and they removed Mountain and released it in this set, which already contained the improved field spell card, so it was really pointless. I don't know why they did that. And there's one more page. So even Pot of Greed was not released in Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon, it was released in Spell Ruler for Europe. I have no idea why they did that. But yeah, anyways, that's it for the set. I hope you enjoyed it. You can leave a comment what's your favorite set card from the set, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.